And some 30th anniversaries. I guess there's some 20th anniversaries as well. A lot of anniversaries this year. A lot of great stuff came out 30, 40 years ago. And so all of it I can't get to. I got to the Masters of the Universe, He-Man Filmation cartoon. I may not cover Inspector Gadget because Disney controls that and they make shit. And so I may not even talk about that. Unless I want to talk about the original DIC Inspector Gadget cartoon. So before Disney bought the film rights and all that crap. Okay. But there was a film that maybe... That was a really fun thing when they did have video stores. They had your standard sections, romance, science fiction, fantasy, and Western, horror, and so forth. So like an old Blockbuster Video, they would have all these different sections that you and your friends could look through, or at Hollywood Video or Movie Gallery or whatever your chain was back in the day. So but they had a section for stuff that was too weird to classify. It would usually be cross-genre stuff. Maybe it was concert films, documentaries. So they had this other kind of area in old Blockbuster Videos or Hollywoods or movie galleries or whatever your movie rental chain was back in the day. And it was called Special Interest. And Special Interest would have your cult stuff. Maybe it'd have like Reanimator. It'd have Labyrinth. It would have maybe Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense. It would have probably like heavy metal. Just bizarre stuff. And a lot of the people that wanted interesting movie experiences would want to go to the rental where in the special interest section to find new things to watch or old things to watch that are great that somehow maybe bombed or were overlooked, like The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, stuff like that. So yeah, the special interest or the cult section was a great section. So it was like, maybe you find Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, really great films. Strange films, but creative, exciting films. Films almost a category onto their own. Films that cannot be classified. Pieces of art that kind of defy expectations or classification, or they're hybrids of different genres and they're hard to pin down. So so in 1983, a movie came along called Krull. It was released. It cost about $27 to $30 million. I think it only made back maybe less than half of its production budget. Maybe it only made shit. It was a massive box office bomb. Yeah. So why was that? Star Wars was all the rave at the time. Before fantasy and science fiction films were separate genres. But through George Lucas's Star Wars, that's like a science fantasy film, basically. Science fiction fantasy hybrid. And since Star Wars was so huge and so successful, a lot of executives and studios and writers and producers wanted to naturally capitalize on the craze. imagine different fads and crazes of the past. If you were a millennial at the turn of the 21st century, and if you went around to all the high schools and all the colleges, all the junior colleges, and you asked people when they're 18, 19, 20, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What do you want to be your like career, right? Your job for life. Like, what do you want to devote your life to? And most people are going to say, for financial reasons, they're going to say, I'm going to be a computer scientist. I'm going to be a computer programmer. I'm going to be in IT, internet technology. Probably about 60% of the people are going to say that. They're not going to say, oh, I want to be a doctor. Well, maybe some say that. Okay. Some say, I want to be an engineer. Some say, oh, I want to be a nurse. I want to be a lawyer. Okay. Other people say other things, but about, I don't know, 6 out of 10 back in the day, which, because it was a fad, or not, computers weren't a fad, but it was like, everybody thought, well, I will have a very safe and comfortable, wealthy life if I choose something that everybody else is doing. Now, I mean, the kind of problem with that is that if everybody's doing it, then it kind of loses its originality. But if there's enough demand, if there's enough opportunity, then it works out for maybe, many people. And maybe you can share the slices of the pie. But maybe this fad did not work out for everybody. So maybe not everybody that got a computer programming or some kind of degree in technology, maybe not everybody did well, but they certainly tried. But maybe there was enough job opportunity and the economy was good enough that people did do all right in that particular field. So the fad of the late 70s to the early 80s in entertainment was like Star Wars, fantasy. Making this chicken. Some just went in with fantasy. So they made like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan the Barbarian. So they just went Dungeons and Dragons, like traditional sword and sorcery films, like Conan the Barbarian, Legend, Hercules, did like Greek tales, like Homer and the Iliad, Jason and the Argonauts. Some studios went into that fantastical direction. Clash of the Titans, stuff like that, right? But then there was clamoring for original fantasy works. Lord of the Rings would have been deemed too expensive at the time. And probably some people considered it unfilmable because it's pretty dense, long novels by J.R.R. Tolkien. So if you're wondering what kind of pan this is, it's like a grilling pan. It's supposed to make like grill indentions, and so kind of simulate a grill, but it's not a grill, but it's like trying to simulate that. So a faux grill on the stovetop. So Columbia TriStar Pictures back in the day, they greenlit Krull, and there was an upcoming star that had just gotten off this Marco Polo miniseries. This young handsome guy called Kenneth Marshall, and anyways, yeah. Kenneth Marshall was going to be the next big thing. Who was competing for leading men and actors back then? Harrison Ford, right? I don't know, maybe you can throw in Mark Hamill. Okay, maybe the old schoolers like Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood. Tom Selleck, right? Pierce Brosnan, maybe, if he was on the scene yet. Leading men, Sean Connery, let's say. This is back late '70s, early '80s, when Krull came out 40 years ago. And Liam Neeson was just starting out his career, just fresh off the Irish Guinness beer factory. So, but Kenneth Marshall was tapped to be the next leading man, the big hot shit. And up and coming other guys were like young Tom Cruise, and you can go through the litany, but it's like you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, people trying to hold on, like call him like William Catt. Like William Catt was still trying to be a leading man in the '80s. So from Carrie fame, Stephen King. So some people from the '70s were still trying to hold on to their fame, like I don't know, Charles Bronson. But Kenneth Marshall was young at the time. Young, handsome, roguish. And people, I mean, he was handsome. Liam Neeson, he's not particularly handsome, I wouldn't say. I'm not a female, but I know that Kenneth Marshall is more handsome than Liam Neeson. Let's just put it that way. Kenneth Marshall was not as successful as Liam Neeson. If Liam Neeson had played Colwyn, the lead of Krull, his career might have been finished right there. So it was probably good that Liam Neeson played a supporting character, Keegan, in Krull, because his career could have been over right there, believe it or not. In Hollywood, one failure can end your career. In that regard, it's kind of like sports. One loss of a championship can end your career. That's how high the stakes are. So, Robbie Coltrane, who would play Hagrid on Harry Potter films in the future, in the early 21st century, also had an early role. And also Liam Neeson as Keegan, as I've said. You had Lisette Anthony. She an Irish actress too. She's in the film at 19 years old. Super young. How old is Kenneth Marshall at the time? He's probably like, I'd say like 25 or something. Maybe younger. Maybe just a little bit older. But he can't be any older than like 28. Because he doesn't look any older in the movie than like 28 years old. But I'm kind of guessing it was a little bit younger, I think. I don't know for sure. So the plot of Krull is a very simple fantasy plot. There's an evil alien who teleports to different worlds, conquering them, called the Beast. And he settles down on planet Krull, teleports down, and the Beast has these soldiers that have these aliens that wear these metal suits, like cyborgs, like symbiotic cyborgs, and they attack the different planets and rule them for the Beast. And only a magical artifact called the Master Sword, or the Infinity Stones, can stop the bad guys. Actually, the MacGuffin is this really cool MacGuffin. It's called the Glaive. It's like this spinning star thing. So you see, it has before Legend of Zelda, it has a very Legend of Zelda type plot, which is pretty cool. The Star Wars influence is that these cyborgs, symbiotic stormtroopers of the Beast, they shoot lasers. And the technology that Roger Ebert and was complaining about is that on Krull they don't have the technology to build lasers because they're still like in a medieval type state where they only have swords and horses, and so that was the complaint by Roger Ebert. Whether if J.J. Abrams makes a reboot, is he going to change that particular criticism? I'm not sure. He might just reboot it verbatim, almost. So I don't know how much how much changes in the technology he's going to do if he's able to make Krull Reboot, but I think the chicken's about done. Okay. I don't know what happened. Did I accidentally disable my chat or something? I think. Need to look at that later. It's not quite done internally, so put her back in for a few more rounds of cooking. Not quite done yet. Almost. So Krull tells the story of an evil, tyrannical alien monster whom teleports and wants to take over the galaxy in a land far, far, in a galaxy far, far away, just like Star Wars. And a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, it's not really a ripoff of Star Wars. It's just kind of blending fantasy with science fiction, just like Star Wars was doing, except without telekinesis, without the Force, without mind manipulation and all that stuff. So, sword and sorcery meets science fiction. Star Warsian, not exactly a direct ripoff because it's different. The Lisette Anthony, they overdub her voice. Well, it sounds like shit. What a horrible thing to do to the poor girl. If they had just let her voice alone, then the movie would have been better. And that would have allowed her to emote and to act. Overdubbed into an English voice, it sounds ridiculous. So Colwyn and Lissa are set to be married on the planet Krull, which will unite the warring kingdoms, like in a Shakespearean style, the Capulets and the Montagues. Trust me, this movie isn't a ripoff. It just borrows stuff from other things, which is like a blend. Like, so if I'm making I'm making a smoothie, I need to borrow elements to make a really good smoothie. So I need to get the tangerine and the strawberry and the cherry. I'm just borrowing stuff so I can make a really good blend of a smoothie. Maybe I put kale, maybe I put spinach for health reasons, but I want to make a very tasty, healthy smoothie, so I have to borrow from things that I know in the kitchen, right? So Krull is a blending of genres and a lot of different ideas all in a blender together, and it's a very creative film. It has limited optical effects. A lot of stop motion, old animation, really cool animation. So, really awesome stuff. This is so good. All right, now it's ready to chop into little bits. That flavor was good. What was the flavor of the chicken? It was kind of like dinner in a movie, except without the beans and cornbread, and without the hot 90s chick in the kitchen, right? So, and of course, I'm not playing the movie, so I don't get a copyright strike and the channel get taken down. So, not authorized. The unauthorized review of Krull, 1983. So back when they had video stores, when me and my friends were in our mid-20s, just about, or maybe, you know, beyond that, before all the video stores closed down, we went to Hollywood Video, which was like the hipper cousin of Blockbuster, the rival in Texas. It was a Texas rental rival of Blockbuster Video, a major national chain, of course. I don't know all the different video chains, video rental chains in the United States or around the world, but I know Blockbuster was the big national one, and then usually they would have like regional competitors. Hollywood Video was pretty interesting. Of course, they rented movies and shows and also video games. Get a treat for my dog. Yeah. That's really good because it has rosemary, thyme, and basil, and then salt and pepper. Really, really tasty. I'm not excited about a JJ, or what Gary from Nerdrotic would call Jar Jar Abrams Krull reboot, because Krull is perfect the way it is. A cult classic extraordinaire. A stepping stone to future mega Hollywood stars like Liam Neeson and Robbie Coltrane. And the doom of Kenneth Marshall. chopping that chicken. Better than choking the chicken, I would say. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Try a little bit of that chicken again. I'll be back. I'm gonna know. I have to drain my wizard real quick. The Beast invades planet Krull, where Colwyn and Lyssa are set to be married. And the Stormtrooper, cyborg, part worm, dark aliens, shock troopers of the Beast, attack the castle where there's historic marriage and peace treaty between the Monarchs and Capulets is taking place. And ruins it. And Colwyn is almost killed in the attack, but the king is killed and most other people are killed or captured by the Beast minions. And anyways, a seer or mentor character like Gandalf or Obi-Wan Kenobi saves Luke Skywalker, Colwyn, and a guy called Ynir. He's called a seer, which is like a psychic. And tells him that he must to free the kingdom and save the Beast has captured Lyssa, like Princess Zelda is captured by Ganon, or Princess Leia is captured by Darth Vader, or the Emperor, or whatever. And Ynir, Robin Hood, and Gandalf must get together a band of merry men to go fight the Beast. So then you're going into like classic fairy tale territory, which is cool. But I don't mind the borrowing of conventions and storytelling. When everything is so well blended, well, sometimes who cares what the ingredients are? If the dinner's good, right? Got stuck, the green beans. Green beans on my scene. jelly bean.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay. Some salt and pepper on the green beans. Yeah, Dinner in the Movie was this old show on, what was it, TBS? Cable? Back in the day in the 90s. And it'd be like this prototypical nerdy 90s guy. Kind of a, is he a beta male? Kind of beta male-ish. So the guy is like this nerdy prototypical 90s nerd guy, white guy, and then the he has a sidekick, which is this sassy, hot kind of Amy Grant white woman who's like sassy and nerdy and fun and all that, quirky, and they make a great team. So they used to host this popular show in the 90s. It was called Dinner in a Movie. And it was pretty good. Okay. Pretty cool show. Yeah. It was funny. And they had this, the theme song was like this old, like African, kind of like a old band. And it would be like beans and cornbread. Were they called the Runaway Five or something? The Mambo Five? I don't know. I haven't looked it up in a long time, so I did look up the song. Like it was like, I've been working for some beans and cornbread. It's like beans and cornbread every night. Beans and cornbread. Like some old band, you know. But it was like it was a perfect song for the intro to that show at the time. Dinner in a Movie. That was a great show. And all right. I doubt TBS's Dinner in a Movie that they reviewed Krull. Too weird. And a box office bomb as well. Beans and cornbread. All right. So Ynir and Colwyn, the prince of the kingdom that has fallen, go on the quest to gain the merry men and assemble a motley crew of warriors that includes Robbie, Coltrane, Liam Neeson, a lot of British and Irish actors at the time, and in England. And some already, established in like Royal Shakespearean Theater, and then some people like up and coming, upstarts, I guess. Wannabes. I'm gonna get a container for the chicken. We don't want to attract the attention of the wildlife, right? Flies or gnats, etc. I don't mind that the Beast bad guys have lasers because the Beast is from outer space. I don't mind magical MacGuffins in a fantasy science fiction movie. I just simply don't care. So I wasn't angry at it as much as Roger Ebert was. The set pieces are amazing. The fire mares, the glass spider or whatever. The old green wizard with the green orb. I didn't mind the Cyclops. I didn't mind Ergo, the shapeshifter. I didn't mind the band of thieves, or the band of merry men, outlaws. I didn't mind any of that. In fact, a Robin Hood Star Wars is a pretty good idea. I mean, from a storytelling standpoint. I mean, if you look at it this way, The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien, the battle at Helm's Deep is basically the Alamo, retold, but in a fantasy form. So, yeah, borrow from the best, baby. Don't want to make it too obvious. But when you're watching a story, you're actually watching a story from like the Bible or ancient times. You're not really, that's the trick that writers use and film studios use, is that really, like, most stories really aren't all that original. I mean, there's some that are, but people can't reinvent the wheel all the time. All right. So the Robin Hood and his band of merry men have to get the Master Sword from the Lost Woods, or assemble the Affinity Stones to go battle Thanos. And then they all get together and work out their differences, and then they attack the castle, the teleporting castle. The teleporting castle starship of the Beast. First, Colwyn must go on the quest to get the magical glaive in a very Zelda-esque scene that's made even better because it's in the Swiss Alps. This gorgeous scenery in Europe. And he goes climbing through the mountains on his magical quest. And James Horner, typically, soundtracks of the time were derivative of Star Wars. So a lot of it's very lame sounding. It's very copycat. So Star Wars is dun 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 dun. And so, unfortunately for audiences of the time, when they'd go see a science fiction or fantasy movie, you would get some facsimile, some terrible rendition of a Star Wars knockoff theme. And so you might go to a movie and it's like dun 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 dun, or something. And it's like, except for, with the notable exceptions being the Superman original score, James Horner's Krull, and for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Jerry Goldsmith's Star Trek 1979 theme, and of course John Williams with Star Wars and Indiana Jones. But most of the knockoff soundtracks of the late 70s, after post Star Wars, were pretty horrendous. Like in The Last Starfighter, for instance. In Krull, under the amazing work of composer James Horner, it's an entirely fresh soundtrack. So I doubt that if J.J. Abrams does a reboot with Warner Brothers, because it's not controlled by, they acquired the rights from Columbia TriStar Pictures. So apparently. So instead of making a knockoff theme like da 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 do 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 or something stupid, um, the Krull 1983 soundtrack is amazing composing from James Horner as usual. I think he did the soundtrack to Cocoon. Of course, if you listen to the soundtrack to the score to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, it's amazing. Most of his scores are really fantastic. So never going to be disappointed, walk home sad after you listen to a James Horner score. They're always epic. They're always inspiring. They're always creative. They're always just, they always hit all those buttons. So the score really lifts up Krull. If it had a knockoff score, the score of Krull as a whole would have been worse. An incredibly ambitious and expensive movie for Columbia TriStars to take on. Sometimes blending science fiction fantasy does not go well, as it does in Star Wars. I think it works so well in Star Wars because mostly it's a space action adventure, kind of a World War II kind of movie, and it stays focused on the wars and the battles, and then the wizard and the telekinesis and stuff is kind of, it's there, but it's kind of minimalized. You know what I mean? The main conflict is the action adventure of the Star Wars. So if you make a movie that maybe shifts too heavily on the fantasy aspect, even, and kind of diminishes the science fiction aspect, not all movies work out that do that. So Star Wars has a particular focus in that it has a war going on between the Imperials and the Resistance, or the Rebels. So J.J. Abrams fucked up the reboot of Star Trek, and he fucked up the reboot of Star Wars. So I'm not really looking forward to what his work could be on a future Krull movie. Krull Reboot. I like the original. You know, the original. The only way I'd probably be hyped about a reboot is if, like, Liam Neeson returns as an older, different character. Then I'll be like, oh, this is really cool. That he's going back to his roots, kind of thing. I would enjoy that. Like, he goes back to his actor struggling days after he's always, after being a box office megastar king for a long time. So, okay. 1 3/4 cups of milk. All right. We're making the chicken fettuccine Alfredo with green beans as a side. That's what we're eating tonight. 1 3/4 cups of milk. Let's do that. Now, to me, Krull is a cult classic, a 1980s lost gem. So to me, it's amazing for introducing a lot of up and coming, soon to be Hollywood stars eventually. It works out well just about for everybody except for Kenneth Marshall. Kenneth Marshall, it's a big bomb. It's a big blow to his career. Now he can't compete with Harrison Ford because he's got a big L around he's got a big loser around his head, and now it's difficult for him to recover, even though he eventually does, playing Eddington on Star Trek Deep Space Nine in the early 90s. But he's still not the leading man status he could have been. He could have been competing with Liam Neeson. He could have been competing with Tom Cruise. He could have been competing with, even William Catt. He could have been competing with Harrison Ford. He poised. He could have been competing with Pierce Brosnan, the big boys, Tom Selleck, etc. But unfortunately, add the pasta sauce mix and everything. Yeah. Get the Alfredo in there. So maybe it worked out tragically the most for Kenneth Marshall. It didn't doom his career forever that the movie didn't catch on, except for just, nerds 10 years, 20 years later, 30 years later, and, looking for cult classic films to enjoy. But it doomed Kenneth Marshall's career from becoming a big-time, well-paid, super rich leading male star. So, unfortunately, some of the cult classics from the early 80s, especially in the science fiction and fantasy genre, were box office bombs, and they didn't catch on. And lots of reasons for that, but okay, and then you put some butter in there too? I think you put some butter, right? Or that would make sense. All right. Get some butter. Make it better. Butter makes it better. Smooth like butter. I'm just kidding. I don't listen to K-pop. I just know that song because it's kind of catchy. It's smooth like butter. For real. Or she's smooth like butter, right? Hell yeah. Ooh. Kind of had some. Okay. It says heat to boiling. Oh yeah. Let's boil it up, baby. This double burner on the Copper Chef. Yeah, my favorite. I love cooking with a Copper Chef. It's dope. So Krull was a movie that was ahead of its time. No one really, back then, I guess, got how, not even Roger Ebert, a major film review from the Chicago Sun-Times, or Gene Siskel, Chicago Tribune. Not even they understood what they were watching. They just thought they were just watching some derivative nonsense, and that was easily thrown in the trash. Just another Star Wars, Lord of the Rings clone. Who gives a shit? Throw it in the trash, right? Roger Ebert couldn't get over the fact that the alien conquerors had lasers and the conquering planet didn't. But honestly, I can't talk to Roger Ebert because he's dead. But a great argument for explaining that is that, well, there's different planets. There's 2 trillion galaxies in our own observable universe. So that's just known, or supposedly known. But really, there would be different life forms and different civilizations at different levels of development. So that different civilizations would meet at different levels of development makes sense. So if like humans developed, I don't know, warp technology to traverse the stars, and we discovered a new planet and we arrived on this new world and we found ancient dinosaurs or creatures, then it would be perfectly logical because there would be different planets at different stages of technological and civilizational biological development and evolution. So that would make perfect sense. So I can deal with it. But okay, I'm gonna blend up some of this chicken. We'll save the rest of the chicken for something else, probably soup, something tomorrow. So we're kind of making meals for different days too. All right, got the food processor. Oh yeah, mix that up real good. You know it. So do I find Krull to be a 4-star film? No, I don't. It's not a perfect film. It's a flawed film. It's not perfect, but the dubbing of Lisette Anthony, this beautiful young Irish actress, is baffling, to say the least. I guess the producers were afraid that the Irish or English accent wasn't going to fly in America for some reason. They're paranoid. Maybe that decision to dub her voice cost the studios that $15 million of the budget that they desperately needed. I don't think the studios thought the film was going to fail because a sequel was actually planned. I honestly think if they were going to make Krull, they should make Krull 2 The Return of Keegan or something. Even though Keegan dies, Liam Neeson's character, or supposedly dies, in the first movie, I think it should be a Liam Neeson vehicle where he's the villain, and then Colwyn's like offspring are fighting. Now Keegan has joined the Beast, and then the citizens of Krull must, attack the Beast or go to his home world or something like that, and destroy the Beast and his minions forever or something. You know what I mean? So it's probably not going to be like that, but. Reduce heat? Back in the early days of the internet, my friend Darren, he called one of his handles on AOL, Instant Messenger or something. He called it Remove from Heat. And then he had a funny email too. It was called Flamin' Flamer. Is Darren gay? I'm not sure if he's gay or not. Sometimes you could just be bad with women. So that could also be a possibility. So that's like, see, you can be an incel. You could just be bad with chicks. That's perfectly possible. Or you could be gay and try to be hiding it. Of course, that could be the thing too. It's like some people might not find it socially acceptable, or to divulge that they're gay. And they may find that to be some sort of a career hindrance, perhaps. And so they might try to stay in the closet, So I think Darren was just bad with chicks, and he was just interested in other things. So. So we do it for 10 minutes. Is the simmering of we keep it on a lid on it, and hopefully it's not sticking too bad. I hope I put enough spray on. It is kind of clumping up a little bit too bad. Let's try to break it up so it doesn't stick. Keep it moving, as they say. We'll add in the chicken last, just because, give the noodles the time to be free and juicy. Woo. Okay, I think it's kind of unstuck. It's not clumping up as badly anymore. So we'll leave that to simmer and check on the green beans. Yeah, got that on low. Gonna bring that even lower, maybe even off, really, because it's been cooking for a while. Get a nice ladle this time. Processed chicken ready to go to the chicken fettuccine alfredo from HEB, a grocer in Texas, named after its founder, Herbert E. Butts. Herbert E. Butts. Seymour Butts. Everybody loves Butts, I think. That dude's still on the loose that killed that tech CEO. He set his apartment on fire to throw off the cops or something. He's like, man, the feds or the cops are after me. I killed a young woman. And he's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna burn my house down. I'm not gonna leave a trace. Interesting strategy there, huh? Yeah. I'm gonna burn my shit. Interesting. Maybe they won't find me if I burn down my shit. I don't know if this guy's too intelligent. I don't know. Wouldn't go that far. Such a waste to kill all these beautiful women, isn't it? These guys running around doing that shit. It's like, there's so much better uses for young women than when stabbing them to death, right? So not everybody feels the same way, apparently. Unfortunately. So, oh well. You want to put a little cracked pepper in there, like kind of get this shit let's Olive Garden this shit up a little bit. Let's Olive Garden this up, baby. Say when. And then the waiter's like looking at you, and then you're like, when? Oh, okay. Put a lid on it. Keep a lid on it. So what's I would go for, what would my rating be if it was like 4-star for Krull? I can't give it 4-star because there's some obvious flaws. There's the dubbing of Lisette Anthony, which was unnecessary by the studios. I don't think that anybody would ever say in America, oh, I'm not going to go see this movie because the person has an Irish or English or Scottish accent. I don't really think that's probably the way they thought way back when, but that logic would simply not apply today. So it wouldn't, Now, Americans would more likely be angry at Robert Downey Jr. trying to be Sherlock Holmes, or English people trying to simulate American English, like in The Walking Dead, Lauren Cohen and Andrew Butterbuck or what, Andrew Lincoln. So I'm more upset about phoned in accents that are terrible, especially Robert Downey Jr. Probably shouldn't have been cast as Sherlock Holmes, but that's neither here nor there. He does all right. Some kind of phoned in English accent. It's okay. It's not brilliant. It's not good. It's just okay. It just phones it in, gets the job done. Puts the football in the end zone, I guess. That's all you really need to do, but not exactly brilliant. I guess they might make that Sherlock Holmes the third. The writer's strike in Hollywood is over, I believe, WGA, but I think the actor strike is the SAG strike is SAG-AFTRA is not over quite yet. So, still kind of thick. Well, it's still got some cooking time, so. This is thicker than Lizzo, man. Ha! Trying to be do a contemporary joke? Yeah, I guess so. Oh, Lizzo jokes. Oh, man. Kicking it Lizzo style. Yeah, so I'd give Krull in a 4-star rating, I'd give it 3.5 stars. And so, and at least, I mean, the score, the scenery, the Swiss Alps, Europe. I mean, the movie is fucking gorgeous. I mean, the 27 to 30 million the budget, it's on the screen. The ensemble cast, pretty good, except for the dubbing of Lissa, which is kind of like pretty annoying. Great performances. You had the spider and the witch and the fire mares and all sorts of cool stuff. Climbing up mountains. The band of merry thieves. It's good. It's not great. It's just pretty good. You got the wizard with the glowing orb. You have like the swamp battle. You got the ending battle at the beast, the teleportation castle. The fantasy science fiction. It's some high fantasy movie. It's great, creatively speaking. So I think if you love science fiction and fantasy, and you love those actors and actresses, you're gonna have a great time. And you don't have to be high. And you don't have to be drunk. Of course, if you're high watching a fantasy sci-fi movie, it's going to make it a 4-star movie automatically. A few cold ones get a little buzz will make probably any movie be a little better. So you don't want to get too drunk because then you won't remember what Krull 1983. And J.J. Abrams seems to be a destroyer franchises. The Star Trek Kelvin timeline reboot stuff sucks for the most part. And they did great casting. And the best thing about the Star Trek reboot is that the casting gets down very, very well the original Star Trek Enterprise crew. So they did a great job at casting. But the stories themselves are trying too hard to be cool for Star Trek. Star Trek, it's kind of like a secret. It's not really supposed to be cool. It's not supposed to be something that like everybody's into. Like it can't be like Marvel Avengers. It can't be like so mainstream that almost everybody's into it. Star Trek was never like that. It was always cultish. And so trying to make it cool, hip, and sexy was not the worst idea in the world. Trying to make Star Trek like Star Wars wasn't the worst idea from a financial perspective. But generally speaking, Star Trek was supposed to be the thing that you were into that people would laugh at you and be like, nerd. It's supposed to be nerdy. It's supposed to be geeky. It's supposed to be click. It's supposed to be niche. It's not like it's not like you're supposed to go to the wearing Star Trek shirts and and saying "live long and prosper," and then people in a crowd, in a random crowd in a club are going to be like, "All right, it's a Star Trek fan." No, it's not supposed to be like that. There's got to be some people like, to make it really cool, you got to have to kind of be an outcast. To make it cool, you got to be like a rogue. If everybody's doing it, it's not cool anymore. So the scarcity, the rarity and scarcity of something, that's where the value comes from. The originality. If everybody's doing it, everybody's buying it, then it's just communism. It's just Chinese Communist Party. Then it's just the Russian Federation or North Korea. It's not good. So, okay, then we put the chicken in there. Ooh, put that chicken. Feel like chicken tonight. Chicken tonight. They used to have this commercial that was like, I feel like some chicken tonight. Right, let's stir it up. Stir the pot, as it were. No pun intended. All right, let's turn this off. It's already done its simmer cook. And chicken fettuccine Alfredo, courtesy of my cooking, but also Herbs and Spices, and also Herbert E. Butts Corporation. I never in 1,000 million universe years of light years of time wanted J.J. Abrams, a destroyer of Star Wars, Disney, or Star Wars itself, and of Star Trek reboot franchise, to be the rebooter in chief of old IPs and properties, especially from the 1980s, which are from the glorious 1980s childhood of former 1980s kids like myself. So, nah, I'm kind of hoping this one doesn't get made. I'm hoping Krull never gets rebooted. Here's how I will be excited about a Krull sequel or a Krull reboot. If Liam Neeson is coming full circle in his career and he returns as Keegan, like as a villain, and if J.J. Abrams is not involved. Okay. But if he's involved, then, maybe I'll check it out anyway, just because I'm a fan of Krull. This great, glorious science fiction fantasy hybrid from 1983, 40 years ago. Came out July, I think, 29th, 1983, 40 years ago. So we're still doing one of the most epic anniversaries. May not be Krull. It may not be He-Man. It may not even be Inspector Gadget. The biggest one we're going to do is coming up. And this retrospective may even have, drinking, may even have music. This one is going to be, it's going to have an epic deep dive. It's not just going to be an hour. This one's going to be like a 2-3 hour analysis. Geopolitical, cultural impact. This one's going to be massive. On my grandmother's birthday, no doubt. Demolition Man, October 8th, 1993, 30th anniversary. So we have to talk about the profundity of Demolition Man coming up. So that's pretty much the sneak preview for the video that's coming up. This was just my cooking video with dinner and a movie, 40th anniversary of Krull. And one of my favorite movies, creative, innovative, amazing, flawed. So I give it 3.5 stars. So about 3.5. Not everybody will give it that high. It depends on your love of science fiction fantasy. It depends on your love of classical story conventions and literature and stuff like that. But old tales and folklore, if you're into that or not. So a lot depends on whether you give Krull 1983 a great rating. But in terms of being an awesome synthesis, a hybrid of science fiction fantasy, I don't think, besides Star Wars and some other films, that you could really do any better.
than that. It's really like a lost cult classic gem that only a few people really know about, even with the power of the great internet. It's really, if you're an aficionado of science fiction and fantasy and cinema and literature and great actors and actresses, I think that you'll love Krull 1983. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's definitely my brew of tea. So my bag of tea for sure. For sure. God bless and best of success. There it is. Fettuccine Alfredo, green beans, chicken fettuccine Alfredo. Courtesy of the grocery of Herbert E. Butts. Butts Grocery. I want to see more butts. So my aunt said, she was like, she saw my Pink Floyd poster of the girls' butts. And then she was like, she came in here, she goes, you like butts, don't you? I was like, well, I'm not specifically a butt man. I'm kind of into butts. I'm not, am I a booty man? An ass man? Yeah, well, yeah. That's the back catalog, Pink Floyd. Bought that at the music shop down the road. So I was like, oh, look, it's girls' butts. See, that's inspiration. So, yeah, I mean, if my aunt says I'm into butts, am I into ass? Yeah, yes, I'm into ass, of course. But there's other female body parts that are equally, if not more so, glorious. So don't limit yourself at ass. So time to eat dinner. God bless. Best of success. Peace.